300 million years ago, the skies looked very different. The forests were different, the air was different, and the creatures moving through that world were different too. Long before birds filled the skies, long before mammals inherited the earth, another group of animals ruled the air. Insects. Not the insects we know today. Imagine an ancient swamp as mist drifts between towering trees. Above, something moves. At first glance, it resembles a dragonfly, but something feels wrong. Its wings stretch nearly 70 centimeters across, large enough to rival some modern birds, large enough to cast a shadow across the water below. And it is not alone. The forest floor crawls with giant arthropods. Millipedes more than 2 meters long move through the undergrowth. Ancient relatives of modern insects grow to sizes that seem impossible today. For millions of years, these giants thrived. They hunted, they reproduced, they spread across vast forests that covered much of the planet. Then they vanished. The giants disappeared, and modern insects never reached those sizes again. Why? What changed? Why can a dragonfly no longer grow as large as an eagle? Why are insects measured in centimeters instead of feet? Scientists searched for answers for decades. Some looked to predators, others looked to competition. Some wondered whether giant insects were simply too inefficient to survive. But none of those explanations fully solved the mystery, because the answer was hidden somewhere far less obvious. Not in the insects themselves, not in the forests, but in the air surrounding them. Something every insect depends on, something every animal depends on, something all of us depend on every moment. Oxygen. To understand why giant insects disappeared, we first have to understand how insects breathe. Most large animals solve the problem with lungs. Oxygen enters the body, the bloodstream transports it, the heart pumps it wherever it needs to go. Insects use a completely different system. Tiny openings along the sides of their bodies lead into an intricate network of tubes. Scientists call them tracheae. These tubes branch again and again, reaching deep into the body, delivering oxygen directly to the cells. No lungs, no veins, no heart pumping oxygen around the body. It is a remarkably simple design, and for small animals, it works extremely well. Modern ants, beetles, wasps, dragonflies, all rely on variations of this same system, but every system has limits, and the limit facing insects is distance. The farther oxygen must travel, the harder it becomes to deliver enough of it. Imagine trying to water an entire forest using a single drinking straw. A small garden might survive, a forest would not. The same problem applies to oxygen. As an insect grows larger, oxygen must travel farther and farther through its tracheal tubes. Eventually, the journey becomes too long. The deeper tissues begin to receive less oxygen. Growth slows. Size becomes a problem. At least, that is how things work today. But 300 million years ago, something was different. The Carboniferous period was unlike any world alive today. Vast forests stretched across enormous wetlands. Towering club mosses rose into the sky. Ancient ferns covered the landscape. The earth was warm, humid, green. And these forests were doing something extraordinary. They were producing oxygen faster than it could be removed. Over millions of years, oxygen accumulated in the atmosphere, higher and higher and higher, eventually reaching more than 30% of the air. Today, oxygen makes up only about 21%. At first glance, that difference may not sound dramatic. 9% hardly seems enough to reshape an entire planet. But for insects, it changed everything. Every breath carried more oxygen. Every tracheal tube became more efficient. Every limitation on size began to loosen. Oxygen could travel farther, reach deeper tissues, support larger muscles, larger wings, larger bodies. For the first time in Earth's history, insects could grow to extraordinary proportions. The giants were not breaking the rules of biology. They were living under a different set of rules, and the results were astonishing. The famous Meganeura soared above the forests, often called a giant dragonfly, though it was actually a close relative rather than a true dragonfly. Its wings approached 70 centimeters across, among the largest flying insects ever discovered. Below, giant millipedes wandered through the leaf litter. Some reached lengths greater than 2 meters, the largest land invertebrates known from their time. Everywhere scientists look, they find evidence of a world where arthropods pushed the limits of size. For millions of years, the strategy worked. The giants dominated ecosystems. They occupied niches modern insects can no longer fill. It may have seemed like the future belonged to larger and larger insects, but evolution rarely follows a straight path, because atmospheres do not remain the same forever. As climates shifted and ecosystems changed, oxygen levels began to decline, slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, then steadily across millions of years. The same atmosphere that once supported giants was disappearing, and with it, the advantages of enormous size. The larger insects became increasingly vulnerable. Their bodies demanded more oxygen, but less oxygen was available. The very adaptation that once made them successful now worked against them. Evolution faced a choice: stay large or survive. Some lineages evolved rays to move air more efficiently. Many insects developed active ventilation, muscles helping push air through their bodies. Others evolved air sacs that improved oxygen transport. Ingenious solutions, but none could fully overcome the basic limitations of diffusion. Physics had drawn a boundary, and nature could only work within it. The age of giant insects was ending. Yet something unexpected happened. Shrinking turned out to be an advantage. Smaller insects required less food, less oxygen, less energy. They could hide more easily, reproduce faster, exploit habitats too small for giants to enter. Tiny bodies opened enormous opportunities. An ant can carry many times its own weight. A flea can leap hundreds of times its body length. Dragonflies became some of the most efficient aerial hunters on Earth. The giants relied on size. Their descendants perfected efficiency. Today, dragonflies still patrol ponds and rivers around the world. At first glance, they seem ordinary, small, fragile, easy to overlook. But every dragonfly carries the legacy of a forgotten world. A world where insects ruled the skies, where giant arthropods wandered ancient forests, where the atmosphere itself allowed creatures to reach impossible sizes. The giants did not disappear because they failed. They disappeared because the planet changed around them. The air changed, the rules changed, and evolution found another path. Every dragonfly we see today is a reminder that the sky once belonged to giants, and the only reason they are gone is because the air we breathe decided otherwise.